right, good morning. Welcome, everyone. The webinar is going to start about 3 minutes. We'll stop at 3 after the hour. While we are waiting for others to join, please tell us in the chat your biggest challenges to getting requirements and documenting them properly. Feel free, just go ahead and type that in the chat. Awesome. We're getting some feedback here. Adequate feedback. Yeah, definitely a challenge. Users understanding what they're asking for. Yep. Speaking the customer language. Absolutely. That can be challenging. We know our business and IT, sometimes we don't always connect. Clients not understanding their own process, or how about clients who don't even have a process and they're hoping you have the magic answers? All right. New to ServiceNow, getting to grips with the platform. Yep. And the challenges that it brings. Absolutely. Our developers often want more requirements than our business analyst provides, almost as if they want all the requirements before coding begins. What a crazy concept. Yep. I totally understand that one. Understanding the acceptance criteria. Yes, that also kind of goes back to, the language barrier between the business. They just know that they want this fancy button on a portal, as an example. We on the technical side, we want to know, well, what kind of button? What should it say? What should it do? When should it present itself? Yes, absolutely. Understanding system limitations. That's a big one. I don't have an easy button. Rayanne, if you have an easy button, please feel free to share that with me. many
button. Yeah.
All right. 3 after, we're going to go ahead and get started with our requirements gathering and story writing workshop. Rayanne, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. This got to start off with our safe harbor first. So you can cue me up on that, Jen, so everybody can read all the legal jumbo. This presentation may contain forward-looking statements that reflect the current beliefs of ServiceNow and are based on current information available. These forward-looking statements should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. So now that we got that out of the way, we'll start talking about the good stuff. Jen, you want to move on to the next slide? We're going to start off with introducing ourselves. So welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Rayanne Presnicki. I currently live in the Netherlands, and I've been in the ServiceNow ecosystem for a little over 6 years now. And what I mean by the ecosystem is I started off as a customer, like many of you on this call, and I was using ServiceNow. And once I saw it, I fell in love with it, and I decided to make it my career. So then I moved on to working for a partner and just implementing ServiceNow. So I've been doing that for around 5 years. Worked for the partner for a couple of years, and then I moved on to ServiceNow 3.5 years ago, and I've been implementing with customers. Could be potentially some of you out there as well, in just implementing. My current role is as an engagement manager. And you're going to hear Jen and I today. We've got 2 different roles. I play the role as an engagement manager. Some of you, it's very, very, very similar to a project manager. And so my responsibility is managing the schedule and the scope and the money, and keeping everyone on track. And so story requirements are such a pivotal part of a project. For us, that I'm really passionate about this topic because it really sets you up for a successful project. It's just one of the most important phases. So I'll move it on over to Jennifer.
Hi, thank you, Rayanne. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Depew. I'm a principal business process consultant here at ServiceNow. My journey, very, very similar to Rayanne's. I've been in the ecosystem about 10 years, and I started on the customer side. So I remember my first implementation. I was on the customer side. I was a system admin. I never heard of ServiceNow before. And it was like, hey, surprise, let's do this. And I fell in love. From there, I stayed on the business side for a little bit, helped out with some product management, got into, that's where I got and fell in love with the strategic portfolio management product. I then went to the partner. So I started implementing and consulting on related to ServiceNow. And then about 2.5 years ago, I came to the mothership. I came to ServiceNow, and I have loved this journey ever since. When I was at the partner and at ServiceNow, I played the same role as the business process consultant. So I feel many of you, the comments that you put in our chat, because I live that every single day. I implement our strategic portfolio management product. So I'm meeting with customers all over the world who have fallen in love with ServiceNow and who want to implement SPM. And during our plan phase, we're doing our workshops, we're gathering our requirements. And as we touched on early, I have to be that translator almost between what are you trying to say and what needs to be said so that we can ensure that we are meeting those business objectives. Excited to be here. All right, let's keep going.
So we've got an hour today, and where Jen and I will share some information with you about gathering requirements for product implementation. So it's a lot around implementing those products in ServiceNow. We'll cover the basics. So what are requirements and why do we do them? And then we're going to share some tips with you, and then we'll get to answering some of your questions as well, or maybe even your challenges that we're seeing in the chat. So we'll get to commenting on those as well. We'll also share some common challenges ourselves that we're seeing, and we'll give you some really some solutions to those and try to help you along the way. And that's really the goal. So this time is for you. At the end, we're going to have some Q&A, but if you have any questions, please place them in the Q&A. I can see that there's already one in there from Kathy, so thank you, Kathy. And we'll answer those throughout the session as well. So that's where we'll be spending the next few minutes. Jen, you want to move on? So today's session is part of what we call Live on ServiceNow, and maybe you've attended some before, maybe this is your first, but these are really curated events that they bring experts within ServiceNow in front of you to really try to help you understand how do you implement your products and achieve your value faster. That's always our goal. So we hope you join us again. We'd like you to just take a little bit of time and scan this QR code. And this QR code is going to give you a link that'll allow you to see the other webinars that are coming up. I know when I was a customer, coming to these events was really helpful. It really helped me to learn a lot and connect with the community as well. So before we get started, click that QR code. I can see also that we've got one in the chat, so you can use it in there as well if that's a little easier for you. And then at the end of the event, just to let you know, you will be getting a survey that you'll receive. We really hope you can give us feedback on that survey. We're always trying to improve. What are you looking for? What other kind of sessions would be valuable for us? So please try to take less than a minute and fill that out. So what's the goal of the webinar today? Today's goal is really to provide a clear understanding of why we gather requirements for product implementation and why that story writing is so important. We're going to give you some guidance and tools to help you become proficient in that area. So Jennifer and I play two very different roles in a project, but we balance each other out really well. So I, as an engagement manager, I spend a lot of time in ensuring that those customers' requirements that we're hearing are outlined so I can put together the estimates, understand how big is this project, what would our timeline be, and what can we get done, and set those expectations for the customer. Whereas Jennifer's role, she's a business process consultant, and she's the one that's gathering those requirements. So the two of us together are really, these requirements are really important for both of our roles, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. Okay, we're going to do a couple polls throughout this session. The first poll is coming up on your screen now. And we'd like to know, before we begin and get too deep into this, help us understand, what is your current project management environment? I can see some results coming in here. These aren't all of the potential answers that you probably could have, so pick the one that best applies to you. But we just kind of want to understand what we've got out there. So we've got some that are working in Agile, but there's no standards. Some are waterfall, very few in waterfall. And then some have PMO and standards, it looks like. Yeah. Give everybody maybe another minute till they start to come through. Okay.
And Ray, we also
Yeah.
have a question in the Q&A
Yeah.
box. I'll want to hit before we move forward.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, so the question has, it's as a process owner or business analyst, often we need to send workflow diagrams to the business. But so far, I don't see any option to extract a multi-page workflow that doesn't fit in a page to print screen from the workflow editor screen to an image or a PDF. How do you manage this how do I manage this challenge? That is a great question. I'm on the SPM side. So we typically don't have a lot of complex workflows within the workflow editor. What I typically do as a business process consultant, not as a technical consultant, so I'll put that, I'm not techie. I use tools as Miro or as Lucidchart to really identify those flows, because from a ServiceNow workflow perspective, trying to share that with the business, it's going to go right over their head. They don't really understand our if then, or we're going to have this. So I find that I really need to simplify those workflows in just little, think of, oh, what was that? Just had a blank, like the art web tool that we, like, people used to use so many, years ago. Get a box and then a triangle or something for your decision tree. But I find that I really need to simplify the workflow so that the business understands what that process and workflow is. And then we can now articulate that to the technical team, and then they use the tools as workflow editor and so on and so forth.
Yeah, good. And I see that from most of my BPCs as well. So I, as an engagement manager, when I'm on a project, I get a different BPC often. So I get a little bit more of a diverse group that I'm working with. And I'd say that's what most BPCs are doing as well, trying to really break it down in a simplistic way and for the business so that they can see it a little easier than what's in that. I know that would be easy and nice, but yeah, I usually see that as well, trying to really break it down in a simplistic way for the businesses.
Mhm.
So I'm going to share the results of the poll. And it looks like we've got, some are kind of ad hoc. We don't have a PMO, not many. Looks like that most of you are working in Agile, but there are no standards. That's pretty common as well. And then about half of you as well in the larger group have a PMO and standards. So we got a little bit of range of folks out there and what your experiences are. Okay, Jennifer, let's move on to the next slide. I don't think we have any more open questions in there. So what are requirements and why do we gather them? We've got a wide range here of everybody that has different experiences. So we're going to kind of step back and make sure that we understand a little bit about what are requirements and why are we even doing them. So maybe we can start with that, Jennifer. Can you help us understand, like, what is a requirement and why do we even gather them? Start simple.
Absolutely. So we're starting simple. I'm going to continue going down that simple path. Requirements identify the needs and expectations of our stakeholders. We take those requirements, we write them in the form of a user story, and that's where we document that feature or the functionality from a user perspective. And why do we do this? We do this so we can ensure that our project is meeting our requirements and the desired outcomes of our stakeholders. So with that, we've got another poll for you. How confident are you in your ability to gather requirements and write user stories that can be used for development and testing?
Nice. We got a lot of mediums coming in, which is nice. Got some highs out there. You all should be putting in your, feel free to put in the chat as well. If you have any suggestions for anyone, we'd love to hear them as well.
Mhm. And while that poll is going, one of our Q&A, do we have a template that we use to gather requirements? Of course we do, especially on the
Yeah.
SPM side, very type A over here. We are actually going to get to some of those templates in a few slides, so you'll be able to see how we capture them here.
Yeah. And Jennifer, we should mention Now Create as well for everyone. If you haven't been out there, uh, definitely recommend going out to Now Create. Go look at what we've got. We as implementers use Now Create as well, so that's how we run our projects. There's a lot of resources out there for you beyond story writing. It's just how to run a project, a ServiceNow project, and getting down to the granular level of what that product is. So if you haven't looked into Now Create, I would highly recommend you spend some time in there. Okay, looks like we got some medium, about 64% of us are medium confidence. We got some highs and a couple with low confidence as well. So hopefully we'll give everybody something today that they'll learn from. I'm gonna stop sharing that, share the results. Okay, so gathering user stories really needs to be a structured and collaborative approach, because that is what's going to give you that project success. That's what we find. And as a project manager, that's really important to me, that we really are structured in gathering these requirements, etc. So Jennifer, what approach do you use in gathering your stories and working with your customers?
Awesome. First, workshops. I mentioned a little bit earlier that plan phase of our engagements, we're going to have our workshops. And what we're talking about from a workshop perspective, we are meeting with our stakeholders. Our stakeholders, I always want to ensure I have my 3 Ps in those workshops. I have my platform owner, I have my product owner, and I have my process owner. And as a process consultant, my process and owner, we're gonna be besties. Now, it's okay if your customer or your organization does not have 3 individual people for that. That's okay. You want those hats though. You want to understand that from, or want to ensure from a platform perspective, you've got that governance there. There's going to be some amazing requirements that are going to come out of that workshop. And the platform owner is going to cringe a bit because they might go against some of your technical governance. So they need a voice. You want that product owner. So I'm going to keep using SPM as our product example. As that SPM product owner, you are very close to your product roadmap. And what is it going to look as you continue to scale your product and the platform? You need a voice. You might have some areas of the business coming in and saying, I want to do this, and this thing is going to be this global thing. And you're like, I don't think so. And then your process owner, we know that the platform does not solve everything. You need your platform and your process to coexist and come together. So that's why I want to make sure that they're all together. So we invite our stakeholders to our workshop so that they have the opportunity to advise on those future state capabilities. We showcase, here's how ServiceNow works out of the box. Now let's talk about your process and what gaps or opportunities do we have. The stakeholders, I mentioned the stakeholders we want to make sure that are present, and then they're the ones that we're going to go ahead and capture those requirements from. While we document those requirements, we will also ensure that post-workshops, we are going to meet with our stakeholders. We are not leaving our workshops with 100% refined requirements. I call them more of a soft requirement. We believe we want to add a certain field to the form. Well, is it going to be a calculated field? Is it a drop down? Is it a free text? Is that field going to move from one form to the other? So we capture that soft requirement. Post workshop, we're going to have refinement sessions. So you might have some action items for your customers or for your business. Hey, you want this field. It's going to be a field that is going to populate data. I need that data. Let's talk about it. Where is it going to live? And then as you're going through that refinement, you're also going to have a final formal approval session. You will read back all of your requirements. We are all human. We're going to get something wrong. It's okay. You're going to read back that requirement and make sure, did I capture your intent? Do we have the user identified appropriately? Do we have the why? Do we have the need? Is our acceptance criteria, does it make sense? And then you're going to get all of that approval and then you move forward into execute. All right, let's pause real quick. We got two
Yeah.
questions.
Do you mind if I
Let's,
grab one of these, Jennifer?
yeah,
You
go ahead.
you probably know which one I'm going to grab, so I'm going to grab Debelina's, which is this may be a little off topic, but I still want to ask. I'm a ServiceNow developer, but want to change my role to business analyst. So can you tell me if business analyst role and process consultant role are similar? And I would love to answer this because I'm super passionate about just careers within ServiceNow and making changes. Um, I will say, Debellini, they are very similar. I think there gets to be some confusion. It's a little bit about a title. The process consultant, I think we use that here at ServiceNow, business process consultant. It's a little bit more, entails a little bit more than just understanding the business process. It's understanding that tool as well within ServiceNow, but it does mirror a BA role a lot. And the reason why I wanted to pick this question as well is I would like to just put out a call there for ServiceNow's Rise Up program. We have a lot of great materials out there. If there's any of you that are maybe working in stories, but maybe you don't you joined today, you want to learn even just a little bit about ServiceNow. But we have a Rise Up program out there that helps you to look at what career could you have at ServiceNow. And Debelina, we have a BA path that you could go and look at, and that's really a path that Jennifer is that kind of leads to her role as well. So kind of similar, very similar, but I think it's just a little bit more. The consultant term after is more to kind of marry up between just analyzing the business and then also marrying up with the product itself. So do we want to look at that other question, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we gather requirements, do we need both use case and user story to capture all the requirements, or user story enough for the same purpose? And how do we decide what all documents will be there based on the project requirements? That's a great series of questions. I would say that for the first part, user story and the use case, your user story should contain that use case. So in a few slides, I think, in a few slides, we'll get to that. When it comes to the documentation on the story, it's going to vary. What type of story are you documenting? One example, you're going to create a new security group for a particular persona. You're going to want documentation there. Who are all of the users? You want that template attached to that story. If we're creating a project template, as an example, we're going to create a project or maybe a series of project templates that we want our project managers to have access to when they're managing projects in the ServiceNow platform. We're going to have some attachments there, documents there. I do like to I work very, very closely with my developers. We are besties. And I gauge them. What's too much information? I don't want to lose anything. What's not enough? And I've learned a lot through my career finding that balance. So it will vary based on the requirement. All right, let's go move forward.
Hey, we talked a little bit about clear and concise user stories and how they're important, and it really allows us to understand from everyone what will be completed, because that's really important in terms of making sure you set that expectation. What your customer, we call it a customer, it could be in your same company, but whoever you're writing these stories for, make sure that you're all on the same page. And it also allows the team to estimate how much work is going to be done. So that's important to me as a project manager, to be able to see, Jennifer writes all these stories for me, and then I can see, how big is this? What does it all entail, and can we get this done when we need to get this done? So definitely something that's important to us. We're going to finish this, John. I see that you've raised a hand. Jennifer, so help us understand a little bit, how do you create clear and concise user stories?
Awesome. Well, we mentioned earlier that when we start to write a user story, we write it in the voice of the customer. I like to look at that voice as a persona. So sticking with our SPM product, I have various personas. I have an end user if they're the ones submitting demands on a portal. I have a demand manager. I have a stakeholder. I have a project manager. So we want our stories to be small and manageable. So we document that concise narrative and it's easy to understand. We also want to ensure we are capturing the value. Why are we doing this? And in addition to that why, we're going to capture that acceptance criteria. This is how are we going to validate and test it? So I have my persona, I have why we're doing what we're doing. Now I want to go ahead and test it to make sure everything that we've asked for was achieved. All right. I see a question in the chat. How do you guys estimate the story points? Do you guys have a defined procedure? That varies. Typical consultant response, I know. It varies on the engagement. So so what we typically do at ServiceNow, we do 1 point equates to 1 hour, and we point our stories to factor in not only the development of the story, but then the testing of the story. When we're talking testing, we're testing unit testing within the sprint. We're not talking UAT. That's after everything has been developed. So we want to make sure that we've got some cushion in there. Some of our stories can be very complex, and we know we're going to have to meet with various stakeholders, maybe go through some solution design. Our design may change based on a few things. So that's how we tend to point our stories. But I've worked with other customers that have different variations of how they want to point. There's multiple methods out there. So it really comes down to what works best for the customer. We're very agile here and we'll accommodate.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Jennifer, as an engagement manager, the project manager, yeah, it's more than just that developer's time of configuring it. It's writing the documentation after the story. It's to make sure that you've captured what you've done. It's including that testing on both sides, the developer doing it, the testing, as well as we here have a BPC then that tests it based on what the requirement was. So make sure that you include enough in there, because that's setting that expectation as well and how long something's going to take. So if I can give any advice, it would be that as well, is just make sure that you put in enough time to encapsulate everything that you're doing with that story. I see that we've got, I think it's a tool. I'm probably hacking your name. I apologize, but it says Debelina. I'm a BPC and BA and happy to share my experience to changing your role. That's great. You know, that's here. I'll put in another plug for ServiceNow. If you're not on ServiceNow community and active in there, get on it. That is how I got here at ServiceNow. I called it my daily yoga. I got on ServiceNow community, just community.com, and I was working for a partner at the time, and I would go out there and read comments from folks and meet people and connect with people on community. It's just a really great platform to meet others that are doing the exact same thing as you, potentially in your same line of business, whatever that may be. So yeah, definitely get connected. I'd love to see. I don't know how you two can connect, but maybe we can work on that. So thanks for that, Atul. What else we got in here from Tom? Hello, when the slide deck and recording is shared, where will I be able to find it? That's a great question. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, I believe that when the attendees and maybe our admin can put it in the chat as well, confirm this for us, but you should receive then afterwards, do we receive a link, or is it?
There we go. There we go.
Yep,
I went ahead and posted it. So the recording of the resources will be available right there. And then we're also going to make sure that after the presentation, our PowerPoint is posted there as well. So bookmark that link.
Thanks for that.
There was a question I answered in Q&A, but I just want to vocalize it so that everyone else can hear about it. Jason asked the question, will Now Assist for SPM have any future to help improve our user stories and test scripts and acceptance criteria? Jason, I can't wait for it. It is on our product roadmap. So with our Xanadu release, we actually did just come out with our Now Assist for SPM. We have the feedback summarization. Awesome feature. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. There's a lot of content about that. We know that we want to expand that to many areas, not only of the ServiceNow platform, but within SPM. So it is on the roadmap. We don't have any indication of when it will be released, but I am impatiently waiting for it. So it'll come. All right. All right, let's go. I'm gonna move a few of those, and I feel like there was another question.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. So now this is you. Now create his business process analyst role, but not BPC. Can we get that changed into the BPC? Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's so many different titles out there.
Mhm.
And I think yeah, I'm not sure why we do that, to be honest, but it really is the same concept. It's helping, the customer really understand their business process, and so it's probably a little bit more of a generic term.
Mhm. All
Um,
right, I want to keep, Rayanne, if it's okay,
yeah.
those two questions, let's keep those in the parking lot just for a few minutes,
Okay.
just a time check so we can get through a few more slides. We're gonna have some time at the end to go through some questions and answers as well. All right. Going to keep us moving forward. So here's that example I mentioned earlier. So here's an example of a user story. Our user story will have a description that details a user, a goal, and a reason. And we'll document this as A, which is our user persona, I need our goal, so that the reason. Here's an example. As a customer, I need a customer survey generated in our customer portal when a case is closed, so that I can give feedback from the closed cases. Our acceptance criteria is written in Gherkin style. That is how we at ServiceNow write our acceptance criteria. We actually changed this year. I love it. It has really, really helped with our business to understand what is being asked. And we found that it is also really helping when they get into UAT. We talked earlier, language between business and IT is like this. We are two planes just passing each other. So I found with this style, it really helps bridge that gap a little bit. So that is going to be our example. Given I am a customer on the customer portal, when I close the case, then a survey will be displayed and the following questions are displayed. This is where we would actually enter in those questions, or if there are a lot of questions, we would have that document attached to the story. Now, when we attach documents, and I learned this tidbit from my bestie, Rayanne, when we attach documents to our stories, we're going to identify that document name in our acceptance criteria, because there's a probability you're going to have more than one document. And I mentioned our development team, our TCs, they are our besties. We want to make their job easier, not harder. So I want them to know you're going to look at this exact document to get what you need. We're then moving forward, and I can submit the survey, but I cannot submit that survey if I do not answer all of the questions. So we're letting them know that all of those questions in this example, they're all required. Okay. All right. Next up. Now, one point of confusion we hear a lot from customers is the confusion between product, theme, epic, and then stories. This hierarchy is the hierarchy we use in our platform, within the ServiceNow platform. If you're used to other platforms for a story repository, ADO, or Jira, you might be used to epics and features. So we have a different hierarchy here at ServiceNow. A product represents a feature or a functionality important to customers. A product can contain themes, epics, and stories that describe these enhancements from the perspective of a user. Using that example, I'm going to give you our ServiceNow example. Strategic portfolio management would be a product. Now, my little disclaimer here when it comes to product, and this is going to be for any of the customers here who are more product centric and you have very mature processes. The way you define a product might have little variation on that. Use that. If your organizations define a product a certain way and you guys are all aligned, then that is how you're going to define that product within the platform. One thing I am overly passionate about, if you can't tell, I'm already overly passionate about SPM, but it's around the data governance within SPM. When we talk about portfolios, programs, products, we want to define them globally. A product equals X, a portfolio equals Y. You're going to find that if you do not do that, as you scale and bring more areas of the business into ServiceNow, you're going to have conflicts, you're going to have issues. So this is where, remember my 3 Ps, that product owner And that platform owner, you guys have a voice. You want to standardize what those definitions mean. A theme. Theme is a strategic initiative. It's that high level concept, and it connects to the development work and the objective. ServiceNow example, our product was strategic portfolio management. Our theme can be innovation management. That's one of the applications within our product. Our epic is that high level requirement of features. One epic could be implementing the idea portal. And then as a story, it's that discrete piece of functionality. So here's our story. As an employee, I need the ability to access our idea portal from the employee center so that I can submit ideas related to product enhancements. All right, Ryan, should we pause for some questions or keep going?
Yeah, let's pause for some questions. I'm answering one here on, do we have to use the terms given, when in our stories? And we do, because it really helps you just write out a sentence after it's done. So I remember when I started writing stories, it was kind of hard for me, but really all you're doing is just writing out a story of who needs it, what do they need, and why do they need it. So you really do want to include that to just really form a proper sentence so that it's easy for the business to understand, and it just makes it simplified. Sometimes that given when doesn't apply. You have to change that a little bit, but the goal really is to try to make it a sentence that includes those three sections.
Mhm.
What else we got in here? I know, Jen, you wanted to hold a couple. Did you want to go to those next? I think it's the first two on the
We can
list.
go to some.
Yeah.
I see. How are story reviews done at ServiceNow? So we do sprint planning, and then we also do within sprint planning. It differs with product, I have noticed, and I think it's just because of the amount of stories, so sometimes that changes. But what we do is we get all our stakeholders in that room and we clearly communicate. We're very transparent. This is your opportunity to talk about the requirement. When we are executing, your chance to give us a requirement for this engagement has sailed away. We will capture those new requirements as enhancements, and if we have either the bandwidth, the opportunity, we'll potentially bump those up. But we want to ensure everyone that's a serious meeting be in attendance and focus. Be there so that we can go over the story. Do we have everything accurately identified in that description and in that acceptance criteria? Because what we want to make sure is that it's all accurate. So then it can be estimated by our development team, and then we can get into that formal sprint planning. So now we can see our team's capacity and then what stories we can complete.
Now, and I just want to add something to that, Jen. So, I think at ServiceNow here, we do follow the typical agile ceremonies. So, we do our sprint planning and then we have our sprints, and at the end we do those reviews. A lot of those are just aligned to creating a demo around what we've completed at the time. So and we always try to put our sprints together. We try to work on that sprint planning, not just, what do we want to pick, but we really try to finish that sprint with something that could bring value to that customer so they get excited about it. So maybe it's finishing a section of something, an epic that entails a bunch of stories. So we really do try to do that with our reviews, but our technical consultants generally do those demos. Sometimes the business process consultants do as well. And that's really what we see as the review. Jen, do you mind if I say one thing about this hierarchy that's still on the screen?
Yeah.
I will say that when I go to customers, so Jen and I are working with different customers all the time, and they have some already descriptions to what is a product, what is a theme, what is an epic, and what is a user story. The bottom, I think it's the user story is a lot easier for everybody to agree upon, but sometimes epic means completely something different. And I just want to say that's okay. Sometimes we can spend so much time worrying about what all these terms are. This is what we do at ServiceNow. I think it really helps us because as a team, we're all aligned. But what's most important is that you just have all of these pieces kind of placed in something. I see often theme and epic getting flip-flopped around, but that's okay. Don't, if the organization agrees upon it, I think that's the most important part. So don't get too caught up in the right and wrong of it. A little bit what Agile is supposed to be about. So.
Yeah. All right. Can I go ahead, because I think we only have a few slides and then we get into a poll and QA. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead, and Marianne, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, so what are some common challenges and solutions? You started off the beginning of the conversation, just the beginning of this hour, saying a lot of them, and we heard them and we hear them. It's, the big ones are requirements that are not well defined. It's really being clear and concise, like Jen talked about, and making sure that everybody understands those requirements really well. Another one is the requirements change throughout the life cycle of a sprint. So you're in the, you're in the middle of a sprint and somebody says, "Oh, yeah, actually, I don't think we want that anymore." And that gets to be a challenge, it definitely does. And then the two that really are really important, and Jen talked about this, is the lack of involvement from those stakeholders. We sometimes get them at the beginning, but we don't get them throughout. And so it's really important to keep them linked in. So at the beginning when you're hearing the requirements, but also as you're going through your sprint, so that you make sure that they're aligned with what is happening. Because sometimes, like Jennifer said, we're all humans and we're trying to do our best with communicating those stories, but sometimes there gets to be some mix up there. So you want to keep them involved. And then the miscommunication between stakeholders. So sometimes you have multiple stakeholders that are trying to align to a process, and that doesn't always work. So you want to keep them connections. So what are some of those solutions? Really hosting regular stakeholder meetings, really keeping good relationship with them, and make sure that they are invested in the project throughout the whole entire. Clear and concise stories, again, good documentation, good story writing, and then being flexible as well. Sometimes, we talk about this documentation and documenting everything really well and et cetera, and Agile is supposed to be agile, right? That term itself means being flexible, but you have to have a balance there as well. You really have to find a balance of making sure everything gets documented well, but being flexible when you can, so that you can stay on the schedule, budget, whatever your timeline is. So. Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick summary and then we're gonna move it into Q&A. So we all know, as we've talked about, gathering requirements, super important, critical step to the success of any implementation of ServiceNow. And focus on your users, really spend time on who are they, what do they need, and what are those persona requirements. So get down to that persona level. Make sure that all stakeholders are involved from the beginning, as well as throughout the entire implementation. And then be concise and clear, and following, what Jennifer, had shared with you earlier about really trying to get down to what exactly they want. So let's do one more poll before we open it up for questions, which we'll probably just answer some of these, but as you're answering the poll as well, start thinking about some questions you have. So since attending this webinar, how confident are you that you'll be able to gather requirements and write stories that can be used for development and testing? Looks like we've got
The results, Rayanne.
yeah. We've got some high confidence. That's good. That's good. I got some medium. We're about half and half. Yeah. I will say that, when it comes to this question is, when I began writing stories, I used to be a business process consultant myself. Jennifer and I were peers, so we definitely, that's how we know one another. And when I was writing stories, I remember it was so hard at the beginning. And I think the most important, especially those in the low and those in the medium, it's just get in there and practice, and it's get in there and you just like anything that we do at work, but you really got to get in the groove, and soon it becomes, I can watch Jennifer. She can just listen and just pump out a story in no time. You really do get there because you start to change your mind to, how do I take this, what I'm hearing from my customer, into the story format. So it does become much more comfortable as you just get in there and you got to practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then one thing I want to just touch real quick, Angela posted, I know this is so much to remember. This was like information overload. As a reminder, recording and the presentation will be posted on the link that we provided in the chat. So make sure you grab that link because we do have that template on the story, how to write the story, how to write your acceptance criteria, as well as our guidance. There's also, I want to touch on, I forgot to mention it earlier, on Now Learning, there's actually a BPC course, and it does touch on, it doesn't go into as much detail as Rayanne and I did here, but it does touch on requirements gathering. So if you have not taken that course, I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you're early in career or early in that BPC BA role. I think you're going to get a lot of great touch points from there.
Yeah, it's another good one. So Now Community, Now Learning, Now Create, really great, great resources. Jennifer, I'm going to go to there's a couple of questions that are in the chat. So maybe I'll start with one there.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
go ahead.
move over us to, that was not a grammatically correct statement. I'm going to move us just to the questions.
Oh,
We'll get into our Q&A. Here we go. Go ahead.
okay.
Do you want to go through the questions
Yeah. Oh,
in
yeah.
chat?
Sorry. Yep. Okay. So, first in the chat, I'm reading, how do you come to common grounds and requirements when different clients want to achieve same goal, but with different processes? Great question. Great question, right, Jennifer?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like you're dealing with the same company, but different organizations, departments, whatever it may be. I don't know, Jennifer, what are some things that you do?
Yeah, so I see this all the time. Now, it varies. I mentioned that typical consultant response. It's going to vary, but here's why. Because sometimes your processes from business unit to business unit or team to team are vastly different. Your end result, yes, we're all going to manage a project record or a demand, whatever it is. It's okay to support those various processes. I've worked with some very large scale global organizations that we introduce both of those processes in. But you want your process owner and product owner to agree to that. They're almost going to say, I support that you're going to have, using SPM as our example, we have a standard process for large scale projects. And then we have a standard process for enhancements. So you're going to get into that room, sometimes it's a virtual room, and not that you're going to duke it out, but you really have to talk through that process end to end. Identify where you have connectors. You might find that you can consolidate and go into one process, but you might find that no, you actually do need two processes because all of the activity that happens maybe in the middle, they're very, very different. So
Mhm.
it will vary.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Jennifer, just to say sometimes, it's hard to know what's leading into this question, but sometimes you have almost like a conflict of it. One wants one wants another. I will say a lot of times I see our BPCs, they're making some recommendations because when you get an outsider perspective on it, so one wants this, one wants this, it's like if we as the outsider can make a recommendation, kind of bringing together the best of the best, sometimes that helps as well. So it just depends on if they're different processes that you're trying to bring up or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we have what other
We have
question we
some
go?
Q&A that I kind of just put on hold from earlier. So I'm going to start
Yeah.
hitting that list. Is there a perfect balance between including enough technical details in the description of a story to get the desired outcome without adding too much? My rule of thumb is just mine. I'm not a developer. I'm not going to tell the developer how to develop. That is on them. They have the expertise to know, is it a business rule? Is it a client script? Is it a yada yada? I'm going to write the requirement. So as a customer, I need the ability to submit feedback when I'm on this page on the customer portal, as an example. How they develop it is up to them. So that's the process that I follow. A lot of the BPCs here, we follow the same thing. We want to give that creative freedom to the technical consultant. Now, at times, we will work hand in hand with that TC because the solution might impact the process. So depending on the requirement, you might have to have some conversations with them to talk them through and say, I recommend we do something like this, but I do not get technical in my story writing or in my acceptance criteria.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right.
So So here's another. I think I just lost that one. There was a question of, can Agile really be used in ServiceNow projects since, I think it was, since there's a lot more configuration than there is development. And I'll say we run 100% of our project work is on Agile stories. So obviously we have a project plan as well that's very waterfall. But when we talk about what we're doing in the tool, every single thing has a story. So if it's just a configuration of adding a field, that's a story. So yeah, Agile definitely can be used for ServiceNow projects. And it's just I, as a user, need a new field on this form so that I can do XYZ. So even if it's simple, it seems simple, but yeah, absolutely. We write a story for everything. How do you prioritize your stories? Maybe I'll grab that one, Jennifer, because that's good. A lot of times what we do is we come in to we're not in an organization that stays forever. We're coming in to implement something. And even if you're a certain deliverable that we have, implement strategic portfolio management and do these 5 things that we want to accomplish by the end. I think that's important, even if you're in an organization that lasts forever. Create your epics or whatever around getting a deliverable so you can kind of have a start and an end. But it's well, how we prioritize then is once we determine what the business's priorities are, then we have to pick those stories to match it. So then we do our sprint planning. We say, okay, we've got an X deliverable that we need to achieve, and then we have X amount of stories, and we put them together to align to that deliverable based on, again, our sprints are going to always have something at the end that they can test and look at. So that's how we prioritize the order. Now, there's also a priority of you got this huge backlog. You got a huge backlog that they want to do. And that we really rely on the business to put together a governance around what's important to them. And that's you always want to make them identify at the beginning, what are we trying to achieve at the end? Or how are we going to measure this at the end? And that helps us understand what our priorities are, because you're always going after that goal.
All right, do a quick time check. Okay. Another question we have in Q&A, what do you consider to be a good practice on transitioning the requirement gathering to the acceptance criteria to user story? We talked a little bit about this early on. So in that workshop, that's where we're going to capture those requirements. So they're telling us, I want the tool to do this. I want the tool to do that. As a business process consultant, we're then going to take that high level requirement and we're going to break it out. And that's where Rayanne touched on this earlier. A part of our role is we're intimate not only with the process, but the platform capability. If someone says, I want an assessment in demand, as an SPM BPC, we need to know and understand there's an out-of-the-box risk and value assessment that already exists. Is this customer mature enough to use that out-of-the-box assessment, or do we need to build a new one? Maybe it's not a full-on assessment, maybe it's a few fields on the record. So you do want to make sure that you have that knowledge, so then you can start to write that out. Same with the acceptance criteria. You should be able to pull information for your acceptance criteria from that requirement because you've already identified who that persona, that user is, the what and the why. We also work with our customers. This is not a one-person show. You're not just writing the requirement and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. No, you're going to work with that customer. Here's what I heard. Did I hear this correctly? Do we need to alter a little bit of this? So that's what I recommend. There's a lot of collaboration when you're in that plan phase.
I'm going to try to tackle a couple questions here at the same time. We've got one that says, can you tell me more and expand about the importance of the relationship between the dev and the BA? And then there was one about, does the dev need, or the technical person need to be at the story, at the requirements gathering? And so Jen says that we call them technical consultants here. Some call them developers. That's exactly that same role. and they're besties. And because they need to work closely together to say, Jennifer as a business person says this is what I'm hearing, and that technical person is starting to work on that solution. And so they really do need, it's really important for them to work closely together. And so yes, we do at ServiceNow projects, we do include that technical person when Jennifer is doing her facilitating her workshops and gathering requirements. We have that technical person there so they can hear everything that is being said, because they're processing that solution out. So very important.
Mhm. I was actually just about to respond to one anonymous member, but I'll vocalize this one here. And how best do you gather requirements outside of the workshops? It's very typical. We're in the middle of build and we get new requirements that come in. You have to have a plan in place beforehand on how you're going to handle that. Some customers, they find that we have some critical gaps that have to be addressed. We will write either the enhancement record if it's tied to an existing story, or a new story that we place in the backlog. What I do is, even though it's a backlog story, I like to get that refined as much as possible, get it estimated. So in the event that we have a room to put it back into a sprint, we do. There are times where our customers have so many great ideas that we just can't deliver everything within an engagement. So we leave them with that backlog. They'll have that backlog of stories, and then they know it's all an iterative cycle. We've mentioned multiple times we follow an agile methodology. So we do the implementation, and then we leave them with some backlog stories that they can now prioritize and get into that release future state. All right. There's another one I wanted to address earlier. Someone mentioned about a statement I made on changing how we capture. We did not change how we capture the description of a story, so that given all we changed how we do our acceptance criteria. We used to write, I know this is complete when, and then we'd have all these bullet points of that acceptance criteria. Now using the Gherkin standard, we break that out. And I mentioned earlier, we found that it really helps. It really helps not only the business understand, it helps the TCs, and then it helps with testing.
So I answered a couple online. I will ask Jen, do you know, we have a question about roadmap. Do we have a roadmap on Agile module to capture sprint project retros or retrospectives? This is a great question. Do you know that, Jen?
I have not seen it yet, but for those of you who are using SAFe, you might be aware that SAFe is transitioning into Enterprise Agile Planning, EAP, which is on top. It's layered on top of Strategic Planning Workspace. I know that they do have that particular requirement in their product backlog, as well as for the Agile Development application. So I don't have any insight into the when, but I do know that a lot of our customers, especially customers who are more formal, and I'm presuming that in your case, if you're doing that, they want this in our product. They're being more vocal about that. I will tell you, product feedback, our product managers here at ServiceNow, they look at the idea portal. Go out there, put your ideas out there, and vote on products or enhancements that you want. It helps us because we know some of the product enhancements that we want, we hear from customers, but when they go back and look, well, how often is it actually being asked? Sometimes there's a big gap variance. So it helps us help you. So please go to that idea portal. You can find it, I believe, on the community page. There's a link to it there, and post your ideas. If someone has a similar idea, vote that up. Please, please, please. It really helps.
Yeah. So there's a question on here about Gen AI, and Jennifer, she knows Gen AI is huge for us. Like AI we focus all the time on it. Every single product owner that will develop any product on our platform is responsible to make sure that they're growing in AI, because we know that that's the way. So I'm not sure, I don't know, Jennifer, if you have any knowledge about in project, but there's definitely pieces that are getting added all the time in all of our products. Yep.
So now Assist is our Gen AI tool. We've seen a lot, and actually in our Xanadu release, that's where we're seeing more Gen AI capabilities. Our first peek into Gen AI from an SPM perspective, we're seeing it with product feedback, which is located in Strategic Planning Workspace. We know that there is a nice, healthy pipeline to get it into project, to get it into the docs, the new docs component within project Workspace, if you'll see it there, as well as on the story side. So looking at that summarization feedback. So keep up with those. I know there's a lot of release notes, but just keep them tabs, or on the community, there's the forum out there. You'll see that when we have some new capabilities, they will have events. So you'll see a lot of, because it is such a hot topic, our product success team, they will host various events showcasing that capability.
Now I know we're at the top of the hour.
Yes.
That's probably you too, is Jennifer. So thanks. Gosh, these were great questions, everyone. Great interaction, as always, helps us out with helping you out. So
Yeah, awesome. Thank you all so much for attending, and we hope to talk to some of you guys shortly.